views and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teele. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info Show. I'm so glad you could join us today. It's going to be an interesting day. We're going to be talking about brain health. We've been social distancing, keeping ourselves away from others, hopefully keeping sound from coronavirus. But we need to think about our brain and keeping our brain safe and sound also. There are lots of ways that we have found to keep our brain healthy. We want to keep our brain healthy, and they include Mediterranean diet, exercising our brain. But there are other things that we can do that maybe you've never thought of or weren't aware of that can also improve your brain function. There's one company, and it's called NeuroPeak Pro, and they promote that they can help to optimize your brain function that can actually impact the rest of your life. So joining me today from his Michigan office is Nick Bullheis. He's the Vice President of Clinical Services for NeuroPeak Pro. Hi, Nick, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Marcia. It's really great to be with you. I look forward to spending the next hour with you.
Well, this is very interesting. I love talking to people all over the country and seeing what's going on in other places. And I'm so excited to have you on the show today to talk about brain health, because this show is for not only caregivers that are taking care of someone that has brain problems like dementia and Alzheimer's and other things, but the caregivers themselves worry, is it going to happen to me? The adult children worry, is it going to happen to me? And you know, your friends and your coworkers and other professionals that are working with people that have memory problems and lots of other issues going on, you know, want to be safe and want to keep themselves safe. So it's a very good topic for just about everyone, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So NeuroPeak Pro is your company that you've been with for about 13 years, I think you told me. And exactly what is the company? Because first of all, I want to establish what it is not, helping people with functioning, because one thing it is not is promoting medications and things like that. So tell me a little bit about what NeuroPeak Pro is.
Yeah, so we actually got our start working at our other end of the spectrum, working with students that were dealing with academic issues, anxiety, ADHD, offering a non-medication or a non-pharmaceutical intervention to help with those conditions. What we found over time is you'd be sitting in the lobby talking with their parents and their caregivers, and parents would be like, hey, I dealt with a lot of those same things when I was a kid. Or I'm dealing with something different now as an adult. Do you think you could help me? Well, yeah, you have a brain, so I'm sure we could probably help. Let's take a look at it. And then just over time, the last several years, we've had more and more mature adults come in and saying, hey, I'm struggling with my memory. What could you do? What could you offer me? So we spent actually a lot of time looking at aging brains and trying to develop a very intensive, rigorous program that's non-medication based that could be specifically designed to help people that are dealing with memory concerns going forward. So it's kind of a unique route that we took to get to this point.
That's great. However, people know about brain health. I mean, it's touted in the news all the time. It's in all the magazines. Keep your brain healthy. They tell you to eat a Mediterranean diet and avoid certain foods and eat more of other kinds of foods and exercise your brain. Do Sudoku, learn a new language, learn how to play an instrument. These are things to exercise your brain. How is what you do at NeuroPeak Pro different from the things that people can do on their own, like what I just mentioned?
Yeah, what you just mentioned is a lot. It can be overwhelming for people to go through that whole list and say, do I have to do all of that? Where I'm going to run out of time in the day. So really, what we do before we start developing a training plan for somebody is to actually look at their brain. So we have equipment today. And in the world that we live in, we're all working out of our homes for the most part. We can actually send people this very simple device, and it measures your brainwave activity using what's called an electroencephalogram. So it's just a little sensor that we can move to various areas of the brain and measure how your brain literally is firing. Many people don't maybe realize that our brains run on electricity, just like our TVs and our computers. We have faster brain waves and we have slower brain waves. And depending on your age, you should have different levels of each. And so what this electroencephalogram allows us to do is to measure and say, hey, these different parts of your brain, are they firing like they should? Or are they maybe going too fast or too slow? And when those things start to happen, that's when we start to see and experience the symptoms that present themselves on the outside. So all the things you listed are great and they're generally good for everybody. And quite honestly, we talk about all of those things with our clients. The initial starting point is to actually measure the person's brain and see how their brain is firing, because then we can develop a very specific plan for them to treat or train their brain and how it's functioning.
So it's an individualized program, first of all, because you're using someone's specific brain, and everyone has their own brain with all that goes with it. So this thing that you attach that you're talking about, do you mail that to somebody? How do they get it? Is it part of the program and then you connect it to the computer and you can do it without being in an actual physical place with them?
Yeah, that's the beauty of technology. Is it's a small little headband that people put on their forehead that then has a little cord with an electrode on it. It's all non-invasive. So it doesn't send anything into the brain. The way an EEG works is it's simply recording what's going on in your brain. And it's really cool. We live on Zoom. It's been funny, the last 2 to 3 months hearing all these news stories about people using Zoom for the first time. We've used Zoom for years. That's how we work with our clients. Like you said, I'm in Michigan. We have staff in South Florida. We have them in California. But we live on Zoom with folks. So yeah, we just mail out the equipment. They download our app onto their phone. We have an app for that. We download their app on their phone or on their tablet. And then we meet with them via Zoom. And in real time, I could be sitting here in Michigan. We could have your brain hooked up down there in Florida, and I could see your brain waves on my computer screen. I could see exactly how your individual brain is firing and how that compares to what the average brain you're your age should look like. And you can see it too. I can show you, and it's really interactive. And it's really fun to be able to show people how their brain is firing right in real time.
Well, that's fascinating. It's in real time. You can see what's going on. You get feedback immediately, but it also sounds it could be scary because you might see something that we might not want to know about, and we're going to talk about that and more. We're going to take a real quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this NeuroPeak Pro brain activity thing that Nick is telling us about. It's amazing, all new to me, and maybe to you too. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more.
Combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
My guest today is Nick Bullheis, and he's the Vice President of Clinical Services with NeuroPeak Pro. And we're talking about our brains and keeping our brains healthy. But before we can help them get healthy, we have to find out what's going on in our brains, right, Nick? And that's what we're talking about. So you have this service that reads our brain and reads our brain waves. And it's interesting because people want to be smarter, better, healthier. What actually is the benefit of having your company reading our brains? What can it tell us?
Yeah, it does sound a little sci-fi when you at first say, we're going to be reading your brains. But really what we're trying to do is quantify and understand better the organ that we're going to treat. In regular medicine, if you hurt your shoulder or your knee, they're going to want to scan the shoulder before they decide to do surgery or rehabilitation. That's really what you're doing with an EEG, is saying, hey, somebody is presenting with a particular list of symptoms or condition. Let's see how the brain is firing, because then we can probably develop a better training plan for them. So that's really the starting point, is to be able to provide data and show you, hey, this particular area of your brain should be firing a certain way. Now, a lot of times in memory loss, we'll see slowing of the brain. So we'll see there's different parts of the brain that are starting to slow down, and that's why our cognition is declining. Well, the EEG is going beyond just what you can see on the outside and starting to pinpoint, this is the area of the brain that is not optimized. Now let's go in and work on a plan to optimize it. Because then when you start an intervention, whether it be the neurofeedback like we do or any other type of training, we can go and reevaluate the brain and say, hey, before we started this training plan or this treatment, the brain looked like X. And now after this, it was Y. So how effective was our treatment? Which is a big reassurance to folks to say, hey, is what I'm doing actually doing anything for me? I'm not wasting my time, am I?
So that being said, who's a great candidate for doing something like this? Do you have the perfect type of person that it would benefit the most?
Yeah, for a lot of your listeners, they're the caregiver. And we have this saying. I think you may even mentioned it before, but it's important to take care of yourself first before you can take care and help others. So, I'm sure a lot of folks listening, they have higher levels of stress and they could be fatigued because they're busy caring for others. Well, we can take a look at your brain and find, hey, are there areas that we could help you with to reduce that stress level? We can't take away all the environmental stress that you have, but if internally there's a certain level of stress, our program is very good at lowering that. When we were talking earlier before the show, I mentioned we're just getting ready to submit our manuscript on our 18-month clinical trial on memory loss, where we took folks that were diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. And we saw fantastic improvements for them. So I think what our one of our main takeaways is the earlier that we can help somebody, the better. When they're already diagnosed with dementia, the decline is so precipitous, it's hard to gain back. But if we can catch them right before there and implement some of these interventions, the brain has an amazing ability to rehabilitate and to get stronger, even at that advanced stage of memory decline.
So how long does the process take if someone decided that they want to see how their brain is functioning and get a feedback and a read back? What's the process length of time?
Yeah. So again, it's really easy to send equipment out to people. The evaluation only takes about an hour. So by the time we walk you through how to look at the various areas of your brain, we're able to generate the reports right in real time. So within an hour on a video chat, I can show you exactly how your brain's functioning and start to walk through what a game plan would look like for you. And then for those folks that we find things to work on that would be beneficial to them, it's about a 3-month program where people are doing all of the trainings, all the exercises right in their home. They're meeting regularly with one of our brain coaches who are kind of their cheerleader and their support system to make sure, hey, how are we doing? Are we accomplishing our goals? They're providing a lot of the education and curriculum to our clients, things that they can be working on at home from a lifestyle standpoint, diet, exercise, sleep hygiene. So over the course of those 3 months, it's heavy on engagement with our team, heavy on education and making those lifestyle changes. And then what the data shows is that even well beyond those 3 months, the brain, you've kind of retrained the brain how to function. Those gains last. So it's an intensive 3-month training for most people.
So we know that there's different parts of the brain that control different areas of our functioning. Some of it's memory, some of it's speech, language. So when you're looking at the brain and you're getting this neurofeedback, does it concentrate on a particular part of the brain if someone's having a particular problem or symptom, or do you look at all areas of the brain?
Yeah, that's a great question. The answer is yes to both. We have the ability, and this is what we do in the evaluation, is to move that little electrode to the different areas of the brain and analyze them and say, hey, how is the frontal lobe functioning? How is the temporal or the parietal lobe? And then we combine that with our conversation with you and say, okay, you or your loved one, how are you functioning? So then we can start to say, okay, we're maybe seeing some imbalances in 2 or 3 different areas of the brain. Let's then look at how you're performing. And then if we find, okay, you know what, they're actually struggling the most in, say, their emotional response, kind of just their organization, which again is one of those things that starts to go with memory. We will then hone in on those parts of the brain and say, yeah, we found these frontal lobe imbalances. They're reporting more issues there. let's concentrate our training there first with the neurofeedback. Then as they start to improve, we can start to go down the list and say, okay, we also found some areas maybe on their left temporal lobe, and that's more of their speech and language. Now we can start to go work on that. So again, it's very individualized based upon how the individual is functioning and what their brain map shows us on the front end.
So you mentioned a minute ago that by the time somebody's diagnosed with some form of dementia or Alzheimer's, some type of memory problem, it's almost too late because you've lost your opportunity to maximize your benefit from it. But let's say someone comes into you and they do not have a diagnosis, a professional diagnosis, and you spot some real problem areas and things that are really out of whack with the norm. What happens then? Do you diagnose? Do you tell them, that they need more help? What happens then?
Yeah, so our mobile training program is very much designed to be a peak performance program. So we are not rendering a diagnosis for treatment or anything like that with this particular program. That would be more, we were very steeped in our clinical roots from years ago, and we would diagnose all these different conditions. If we have somebody, though, that as we're working with them, the decline seems quite rapid, or their symptomology appears to be out of the norm, then we can easily have a conversation. Hey, are you seeking out any other services that could be helping you, or perhaps it would be time to have a discussion with your primary care physician for some additional testing that could either rule in or rule out some other things. So we will keep an eye out for those things, but definitely this program that we offer remotely is designed to be a more of a performance program.
So if I'm an average person and I want to be healthy in my brain, are there certain things that I should be aware of or notice that are declining first in my own life before I seek additional feedback, or should I just go for it and see what happens?
Yeah, people ask all the time, like, who visits you? Like, how do people know when they should come to see you? And my standard answer always was, well, they come to us when it's bad enough. When however they're functioning, it gets to a point where it's impacting their day-to-day activity. My thoughts on that have changed a little bit over the years. I still think that there's a lot to that. Where, hey, we are all used to functioning a certain way. But sometimes we get to the point, man, I'm forgetting names a little bit more than I used to. I'm misplacing the car keys. It's just those little things that we can chalk up to old age or just aging. But it really shouldn't be that way. We can get over that. So it's probably those little things that start to add up that are just nagging at you a little bit. But then I really view what we do more than ever is basically this is exercise for your brain, like you go to the gym. If you ever go to the gym, there are a lot of healthy people at the health club working out. They're doing that to stay healthy. They're not allowing themselves to decline physically. So we're seeing more and more of that in our brain performance program too, where they're like, hey, I'm doing okay. I want to keep it that way. I don't want to get to the point where I have more of these significant things going on.
So you mentioned children earlier. You kind of got your start in helping children, but a lot of adults and even some professionals that are high profile have even sought services. And you mentioned before the show started that you even helped some sports figures. And I see the jerseys behind you, the sports jerseys. Why would an athlete who's in good physical condition, right? They're strong, they work out all the time. Why would somebody like that worry so much about their brain when they're out on the field kicking a ball or swinging a bat?
Yeah, we all have to focus and we all have to manage stress. I've got a couple quarterback jerseys behind me. being the quarterback of a professional football team is a pretty stressful job. You have 300-pound linemen crashing in on you, trying to rip the ball away from you and sack you. So they want to make sure that their brain is processing information as efficiently and quickly as they can. Again, when we think about pro sports, they all work out. They all have great nutrition programs and all that. They view exercising their brain as one of those last frontiers to gain a competitive advantage. They think that, hey, we're all in the weight room. Not every athlete that I'm going against is concentrating in my brain, so I can gain a competitive advantage there. The other really unique thing in some of these contact sports is the brain injury aspect of it. So professional football, hockey, we see a lot of individuals that come to us with some pretty significant head injury history, which that's another huge factor towards memory loss down the road. So we're really good at helping to rehabilitate a brain after it's been injured.
So that's another aspect, is helping the brain recover from damage also.
Correct. And yeah, many of your listeners probably aren't, ex-professional football players, but we have plenty of people that have come to us over the years that have been in an auto accident or a skiing accident where, yeah, they've had a head injury and it's impacted their cognition. We see folks with head injuries that now they have depression or sleep issues or memory concerns. The wonderful thing about how our brains are truly wired is with proper instruction and training, you can rehabilitate the brain and you can repair many of those connections to gain back what was lost.
Wow, that's fascinating. We're going to go to a commercial break and hear a word from our sponsor, but we'll be back in just a moment and more with Nick from the Neuro Brain program. And it is so fascinating. I want to hear more about it. Neuro Peak Pro. We'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Community. Arden Courts is a leader in memory care. They have 55 communities across the United States there to help people with memory loss live a better quality of life and to help their caregivers too. One way that they'd like to help you today, if you're a family caregiver of someone with dementia and you don't have this book, it's called The 36-Hour Day. It's an awesome resource. And you can have it today for free. All you have to do is email your name and address and telephone number to get it. And the way you do that is just email delray at arden-courts.com. Again, Delray, Delray, at arden-courts.com. Tell them that you heard about the free offer on the Caregiver Solution Info Show, and they'll be happy to get a book shipped to you right away. I highly recommend this book. It's full of tips and information and definitions and things that are going to help you along your caregiving path. So don't delay. Send a quick email and get this book, or get it for someone that you know that it would help, because it would be a great gift to help a caregiver, especially when you don't know what else you can do. So don't delay and email delray@arden-courts.com. So my special guest today is Nick Bolheis. He's the Vice President of Clinical Services at NeuroPeak Pro, and a company that actually looks at our brains and tells us where we need some help and all the benefits that this neurofeedback can do. So, Nick, we're talking about the people that we can help, areas of the brain that can benefit. The way it actually works, from some of the materials that I looked, that your collateral that you have, there's different brain activity based upon hertz, right? Like at certain levels, and it shows different brain activity. Do you use that in your determination of how people are functioning?
You nailed it, Marcia. So for those that aren't familiar with frequencies and brainwave hertz and all of that, I kind of use the speedometer analogy. We've got different brain waves that go different speeds, and we have slow brain waves and fast brain waves. Just watching the little piece here about the 36-hour day for the caregivers. Again, they have to take care of themselves and their loved one. That is highly, highly stressful to have to do that. And so oftentimes when we have individuals like that come to us, their brain has an abundance of fast brainwave activity. Those are called high beta brainwaves. It's our fight or flight mode. And my hunch is that many of them are they're in that fight or flight mode. They're just trying to survive, to care for their loved one. So yeah, we're able to measure the amount of high beta that they have in their brain using that EEG technology. But then we're using that in the neurofeedback to teach the brain to produce less of it. And in the way that neurofeedback works, it's actually a very simple concept. It's a reward system. So when they're actually doing a neurofeedback session, it's about a 20-minute session. And again, it's an app on their phone. They're hooked up to the little headband. They can watch little videos or play little games. And when their brain waves are firing like they should, they're in a normal, healthy state, their video will play or their game will play. Everything will be great. But every once in a while, we know that their brain starts to go just a little too fast. They just get this little surge of activity. That's that high beta spiking. The split second that happens, their movie stops or their game stops. They're getting feedback that says, hey, something's not right. The brain will then calm back down. And over the course of time, over the course of this 20-minute session, their brain is getting thousands of reinforcers. And over the course of that training program, then their brain is starting to figure out this pattern and says, okay, I don't know why, but when I'm here, I get the reward. But when I go over there, I don't get the reward. So it's conditioning or training itself to spend more time in that healthy, regulated state. So there's a simplicity to it, but then it's also pretty cool to think, wow, our brains are that amazing that I can watch a little video, stop and start, and over the course of time, my brain figures out the pattern and starts to fire different.
That's pretty amazing. And again, different than doing something on your own with a game or a video, because you're not getting that immediate feedback. It might be taking you a long time, or you might be struggling with it and you don't know what that problem is. But with the neurofeedback, you're actually getting that, and it's saying to you, we have to do something different, right? I think that's. Yeah, I think that's amazing. I know your website is neuropeakpro.com, and people can go to the website to learn more about it, and that's neuropeakpro.com. We've talked about the time, we've talked about the process with all of this, but ultimately we have to talk about the cost. because it sounds very high tech and it sounds intricate and it sounds like it might, be something maybe that would be prohibitive to everybody. But let's talk about the cost and how is it paid for?
Yeah. So with it being a mobile peak performance program, there aren't insurances that will cover this or anything like that. So it's typically a cash pay type of thing. But what we've really tried to do is make it as accessible for people as possible, because we think that this can help a lot of people. So the full evaluation and then 3 months of training, so the entire program is just under $2,000. It's $1,950. That's everything. Incidentally, when we used to have our program in a center where people could come to a brick and mortar facility to do this, it was the same exact cost. For 3 months of training in one of our offices, it was $1,950. And even with all the high tech equipment that we're giving you to do it in the home, we're able to still keep the cost the same. And so we realize that there is a cost involved, but sometimes joke, we just had to put braces on our daughter last year, and that was $6,000, and you just do it. I think our brains are just as important as our teeth. So it's an investment that we think is worthwhile for people, especially when you see the outcomes that you get after the training is done.
If someone wanted to take advantage of the opportunity and check it out further, how's the best way for them to contact the company?
Yeah, we have a great team of people, both again in Michigan where I live, but also in South Florida. We've got some great staff there. So if people visit our website, neuropeakpro.com, I'd love for them to check that out first. They can see different testimonials. They can see our published research that we've done. Again, this is not just a fly-by-night program. We've been around for 15 years. We have peer-reviewed, published program pieces. But then they have the opportunity to talk to our staff and share their story. And then our team on the phone be able to kind of walk them through, hey, yeah, this sounds like something that could be beneficial to you. Or perhaps there's other resources that would be better for you. So it always starts with that phone consultation, and they can get that on our website, which is, again, there's no charge for the phone consultation. And we always love to hear the story. And our team then can start to give them better information on, hey, is this a program that could be beneficial for them? Or are there maybe other resources that would be better for them?
And because it's mobile and it's done in your own home, anybody could take advantage of it, and find out about their brain and the places that they're got plus and minuses. Because I'm sure that you would share the good parts too, right? Of things that are firing good and helping and being out there, just working our brains. We all tend to doubt ourselves sometimes, and this is a good way to get that feedback, especially if we want to improve a certain area. And I wanted to talk about improving certain areas because besides memory and besides reducing stress that we talked about because of caregivers having a lot of stress, which is overwhelming at times, there are other benefits that you can actually provide to someone that would be also very impactful on their life. And one of them is insomnia. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I'll often talk to people and say, hey, if the only thing that improves for you by going through our program is that you sleep better, that's a huge victory right there. Because, yeah, when we look at a brain that is dysregulated and not firing well during the day, which is leading to the symptoms that people come to us for, it doesn't magically get better at night. Usually then you have a poor sleep-wake cycle. So the quality or quantity of your rest is compromised. So as you work to regulate how your brain is firing through the program, that is one of the first things that most people report improvements on is, Nick, I'm dreaming for the first time in forever. Or I would usually wake up after 4 hours and then have a really disrupted rest of my night's sleep. And now I'm sleeping 7 hours with no issue. So yeah, and we all know, and I'm sure you've talked about it many times on the show here, how sleep is so important for consolidating memory. So that is a very common thread for the folks we work with more significant memory losses. I've been a poor sleeper for years. So if I have a young person, somebody in their 20s, 30s, 40s who's not sleeping well, we have to do everything we can to make sure that we can get them sleeping better.
That's great because sleep is so important. That's when the brain flushes out itself and organizes our thoughts, our memories, and everything that we need. And caregivers obviously do lack a lot of sleep sometimes because they sleep with one ear open and one eye open, listening for their loved one, maybe getting up at night if they don't have help. And it is something that then will compound itself with no sleep and then more stress, and then it just becomes a snowball effect. So very, very important with the sleep. And I think that definitely something that people, think that maybe they need to take pills for that. But, what you're offering is not pills. It's not medication. It's a rehabilitation of the brain without inducing chemicals into the brain, correct?
Correct, because a lot of the same medicines that they would be taking to help them fall asleep can actually lead to more memory concerns down the road. When you really look at what those medications are doing, they're basically sedatives for the brain. Well, there are certain parts of the night when your brain becomes more active, and those are actually when you're etching those memories into the long-term memory bank. So the sedative to help you fall asleep is hindering that. So again, there's people that might need that short-term relief, but anything we can do, and you mentioned too, some of them, based upon their circumstances, may not be able to get that full 8 hours of sleep because they're caregiving. Whatever they're getting, we want to make sure that the quality is as good as it can be. So they're getting the most out of however many hours that they were getting.
And speaking of medication, leads me to ask you, are there some people who are uh, not qualified or disqualified for the program because of being on certain medication, or does that not enter into it?
That's a great question too, Marcia, and it usually will not rule somebody out. Now, there are going to be some instances, again, when you're talking with our team on the phone and we're hearing your story, there might be some things where we will say, again, probably, based upon your situation, there's another resource or service that's better. But all of our research and data tells us that the neurofeedback is just as effective for somebody who's on medication versus somebody who's not on medication. So the medications do not appear to get in the way of our brain's ability to learn and improve.
Wonderful. This is so fascinating. We're going to take a quick break and we come back more from Nick and his fascinating brainwave feedback. I love talking about this. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Today I'm talking to Nick Bolheis. He's the Vice President of Clinical Services with NeuroPeak Pro, a company that reads your brain and gives feedback on different areas that can improve our lives going forward in all kinds of different ways. And this is fascinating, Nick, to talk to you about this and keeping our brain healthy as we can. So that being said, are there expectations that are set for certain people, or what could a person expect to gain at the end? Do you have guidelines, or do you have certain goals that you reach for to achieve during someone's program?
Yeah, for sure. We want to have some tangible benefits and outcomes at the end of the 3 months of training. So when we start our initial evaluation appointment with the individual, we're going to, again, talk through what's bringing them to us. What are they hoping to get out of the program? What are their goals? Because then that will help us to define the training program for them and say, okay, based upon what you'd like to achieve and what we're seeing in your brainwave activity, here's the amount of sessions that we're going to want you to do. Here are the lifestyle changes we're going to want you to make, again, typically centered around nutrition, exercise, and sleep. Because it's not just a magic potion they're going to take that fixes everything. We'll be realistic and say, hey, this is what we need from you. And if you can give us this, those goals that you're shooting for should be realistic. And again, we want to meet people where they're at as well. So if somebody is not active and they're sitting on their couch all day long, we're not going to come to them and say, okay, by next week, you need to be walking 10,000 steps a day. We're going to find something that's very achievable for them, show them that they can make it, and then we'll slowly keep adding to that, because we don't want somebody to be defeated before they even get going. We're going to work on a plan that they can actually accomplish.
How many years has NeuroPeak Pro been helping people?
So we've actually been around since 2004. So we've been around for quite a while now.
And in that time, you've helped about how many people, or for instance, how many sessions did you actually accomplish, let's say last year?
Yeah, so last year we did over 35,000 neurofeedback sessions with people. This year we are on track to blow past that. So again, the advancements in technology continue to make it easier and easier for people to participate. Years ago, they had to come to one of our offices. They had to drive to our office a couple times a week for 3 months to do the program. And that's a logistical challenge for a lot of people to fit into their busy lives or to fight traffic. Now that they can do it in their home and they could live anywhere in the world really and do our program, it just continues to open up more and more groups of people for us to help.
That's great. And with all the years that you've been participating and doing this and all the sessions that you've encountered, you must have a favorite success story that comes to mind of how someone really changed their life with getting the neurofeedback for their brain. Do you care to share a story?
Yeah, there's so many. I try to think of different stories from different populations that we work with, but probably one that would be relevant to our discussion here today is I mentioned our memory clinical trial that we just recently wrapped up. And there was a gentleman who was going through the program that really has significant memory loss to the point where the family was starting to look into what accommodations should we be making for him from an assisted living standpoint. And he came in very skeptical, not really sure what was going on, if this was the right thing for him. After the 3 months of training, he was engaged. He was teaching our staff card games and different things that he had known years ago, but had gone away from him. So to see him very disengaged at the beginning, to by the end of the 3 months teaching our staff things, was really exciting for our staff. But then to have the same family members that we talked to at the beginning that were concerned about, hey, we might be needing to, look into assisted living. Like, we have seen such a transformation in Dad. We're not concerned about that anymore. We feel like he's completely fine functioning on his own. And we'd all like to do the program too, because if you can help Dad, Grandpa, we all could benefit from this as well. So, not the fact that we got extra clients out of the deal, but just to see how concerned the family was for their dad and their grandpa. To 3 months later say, hey, we don't have any concerns at all. We're getting our old dad back. It's incredibly rewarding to be a part of that.
And after someone sees this improvement, how long does it last? Does it go away again? Do you have to do another session to keep it, maintain it, or does it eventually fade away if like you don't use it, you lose it?
Yes and no. I mean, that's why we build into the program those lifestyle modification changes. So we say, yeah, at the end of the 3 months, you may be done with your neurofeedback sessions, but we want you to continue on your exercise routine that you've started. We want you to continue to eat well. We want you to continue to be mindful of your sleep. Those are things that are going to carry with you for the rest of your life that you want to be intentional about. And then, yeah, depending on life circumstances and other risk factors for folks, they may find that down the road they want to do some booster sessions where, hey, they haven't slid back to where they were before, but maybe again, stressful time of life or different things going on. Maybe they just want to do a few booster sessions to just kind of smooth out those rough edges, but it's not like they've slid back to their starting over from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, you're actually teaching them through the sessions too, new lifestyles. And it takes, they say, 21 days to get into a new habit. And, obviously they're going to be in this program for 3 months, long enough to establish new habits. And they continue those new habits, they should be good to go for a long time.
You're exactly right. All about those lifestyle modifications.
Well, I want to thank you, Nick, for being here today. Nick Bolheis, who's the Vice President of Clinical Services of NeuroPeak Pro. And if you want to know more information, you can visit their website, neuropeakpro.com. Nick, I wish you the best. Stay healthy, stay well there in Michigan. And thank you again for being on the show.
Marcia, it was a pleasure being with you. I really appreciate you having us on tonight.
Well, you take care, and thanks for all the great information and your expertise. We really appreciate it. And I want to thank our listeners for tuning in today. It's been a great time talking with Nick and learning about more about our brain and how to keep our brains healthy. And you want to do that in addition to keeping safe during the coronavirus that we're all experiencing, social distancing. But don't forget about your brain and work on that brain health and safety too. Also, if you want to get that book, The 36-Hour Day, just send an email to delray@arden-courts.com and get a free 36-hour day book. It'll be something you can read to exercise your brain and to enjoy while you're social distancing and staying at home. So until next week, same time, same place, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on caregiversolutions.info or on the iHeartRadio app under WNN. Join us, and in the meantime, give yourself a hug and give someone a virtual hug if you can't be next to them. And here's one for you, Nick. Thank you so much, and y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver